Always it's great to ever see everybody here gathered this evening. Tommy Wildcat, Tabatawa. Runethanan, Ruduli, Ruwoni. I'm going to say a prayer. Let's all pray right now. Swanethana, Wanethana, in Fulandi, the Galalade. Though you also not done in the garden, you have Ahan and that already. Now, start to Langstanaha, not there, Doideva. The Gofdana, na Uskaheta, Equa, Caton, Caton, Unefana, Ego Hida, Steliska, the Garden, Caton. I said, translated, Creator, I want to talk with you. Everybody will begin a prayer. Thank you for all gathering here this evening. I want to thank the people for helping out to build Moccasin Bend, the great land region park. For so many people, thank you so much for helping us out, folks, people, as we carry on. For the Almighty. Translate, folks.
Special guest and speaker tonight is Cherokee Nation Principal Chief Bill John Baker, who currently serves as the 17th elected chief of the Cherokee Nation, the largest Indian tribe in the United States. Born and raised in Cherokee country, Principal Chief Baker has devoted much of his life of service to the Cherokee people. He spent 12 years as a member of the Cherokee Nation Tribal Council and was elected Principal Chief in October 2011. With more than 315,000 citizens and nearly 9,000 employees, the Cherokee Nation is one of the largest employers in northeast Oklahoma. A recent impact report showed that the Cherokee Nation has a $1.2 billion impact on that portion of the United States. Principal Chief Baker is a graduate of Northeastern State University and has been a small business owner for over 40 years. As the son and grandson of educators, his passion for education has led him to complete his requirements for his teaching certification also. Principal Chief Baker and his wife, First Lady Sherry, are here tonight. They're blessed with 6 children and the proud grandparents of 10. Welcome to Chattanooga, Chief.
It truly is an honor and a privilege to be here. They gave me a speech to read that I think I can get done in about an hour. But I really don't think that's what you want to hear tonight. The Cherokee Nation is here on this occasion to commemorate 175 years ago of a terrible tragedy. But as I said earlier in the week, we're not here as victims. We're here because we have such strong ties to this area. This part of Tennessee, Alabama, Kentucky, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, was our traditional homeland. We took care of it for thousands of years until contact. Contact came about, and the Cherokee invited the missionaries in. They embraced the missionaries. And sometimes our kindness was mistaken for weakness. It says from yesterday to today, many of you in this room know the Cherokee story better than I do. You've researched it, you've studied it. Every time I come to this part of the world, I learn something new about my family. Something new about my heritage. Because of the removal, all we had was stories. Now today, I was blessed to go near Chadsworth, Georgia, and found the home of my ancestors that was built in 1810. The owner of the house happened to be there. They have owned that home since the Georgia lottery. They live in Atlanta. They're very wealthy, and it is their summer home. So by the grace of God, this home was protected. It did not fall in disrepair. When they added on to it, all they did to that home was cut some doorways for bathrooms, cut a doorway to connect the old part to the new part. But the Cherokee part is just the way it was 175 years ago. How many of you can go back to your family's home 175 years ago? I'm blessed. Now, while I was here, we also decided to go to another relative's home place, which was Jack Walker, down by Cleveland. John Walker was a chief. If you know the history, he was the first of the removal party to be executed by Cherokee blood law for signing the Treaty of New Ejota. The rest of them went to Indian Territory because it wasn't healthy to stay. But we were getting close to it, and Catherine Foreman Gray, stand up, Catherine. Catherine is one of my cultural specialists, and she travels around and gives seminars on outlaws because apparently she knows a lot about outlaws. So she says, Chief, there's something I need to tell you. Now you know that that your great-great-great-grandfather, Jack Walker, John Jack Walker, was killed by my ancestor, James Foreman. And sure enough, on the plaque, it says that John Jack Walker was killed by James Foreman. It's right there on the marker. Now, we don't hold grudges, and we've since found out that when we went to the Harlan house, that we share ancestors there as well. But if you're Cherokee, we're all cousins pretty close. You don't have to go back very far. But, as I said, we embraced the missionaries. We had schools here in the East. Our white neighbors would pay us to let their kids come to our schools. Many of our leaders were Harvard educated. We had the first mandatory public education in the world, long before the United States thought about it. And truly, the United States grew up around the Cherokee Nation. So, we were educated, and by 1820, 90% of all Cherokees were fluent reading and writing in Cherokee just 10 years after Sequoyah invented the Cherokee alphabet. Folks, there's not a state in the Union that has 90% literacy, reading and writing, today. But then things happened and removal took place. You know, and it is not a story of pity. It's a story that is ingrained in every Cherokee's heart, knowing that we are survivors, that we have fortitude, that we can take a lemon and turn it into lemonade, if you will. And so, but when we were down at Blythe's Ferry, I was really, I was sitting there, and we went up on the lookout. I asked Tommy, it was just my wife Sherry and Tommy and me up there by ourselves, and I asked Tommy to play a song just for me. While I contemplated what I was really looking at. And can you imagine today them loading up everybody in this room? You could only take what you could carry, and saying you can't live in Tennessee anymore. Take what you can carry, forget your homes, forget your modes of transportation, forget everything. And when you get on that ferry and you make it across the Tennessee River, you have one last look at the Cherokee lands that your ancestors have fought for, died for, lived on for thousands of years. And once you get up the trace, very short way, you know you'll never see home again. Now, would everybody please bear with me, stand up. No, the problem is they're not literate. All right, I can do it, but kind of look and guess, and every fourth person, just go ahead and be seated. All right, those are the ones that didn't make it. 16, go ahead and sit there. 16,000 Cherokees went on the Trail of Tears. 4,000 perished. My personal Trail of Tears story is that my great grandmother was orphaned on the Trail of Tears. The funny part, if there's a funny part, there is no such thing as a Cherokee princess. Okay? Everybody that is related to a Cherokee, there's no such thing as a Cherokee princess. But in Illinois, there's a tombstone of my great-great-great-grandmother that says she was a Cherokee princess. They didn't put it on there, but the white people that buried her did, because they knew that she was the daughter of a chief, so they assumed that she was a princess. So in my genealogy, it says that she's buried in Illinois, and her tombstone erroneously says that she's a Cherokee princess. Before the removal, 7 Cherokee chiefs were in my bloodline. But with my great-great-grandmother being an orphan, and we did have early settlers in our family, so they brought her on to family in Oklahoma. But it took us 4 or 5 generations to have another chief in the family. And I'm blessed to be that chief. Now, of modern times, I am the 7th elected chief, which makes me extremely proud. 7 is a magic number for the Cherokee. I come from 7 chiefs before me, which makes me proud. But when we got to Oklahoma, our Indian Territory, our people's spirit was not broken. And they immediately went about the business of rebuilding the Cherokee Nation. The 12,000 new Cherokees in Indian Territory fussed with some of the Cherokees that were already there because they thought they had squatters' rights or whatever you wanted to call it. But after some turmoil, they all came together as one people under one principal chief, which was John Ross. He was the principal chief here. He was also the principal chief after the removal. It was a glorious time. When they got there, it looked very much like this very land with all of these sacred sites that you have, it looked very much the same. And I invite any and all of you to come to the Cherokee Nation. I live between the Illinois River and the Barren Fork Creek, up on top of a mountain, a foothill. Creek bottoms look the same. I truly believe that our people believed they were home. So they rebuilt. And the first building that they built, the first public building in Oklahoma standing today, was the Supreme Court building of the Cherokee Nation. Because we believed in law. We were disappointed that we won a federal lawsuit that says they couldn't remove us, and that Andrew Jackson says, well, let Judge Marshall enforce it then. But we were a people of laws. We built a Capitol building so that we could totally reestablish our legislature and our executive branch. Then we went about the business of building schools all over the Cherokee Nation. And I'm most proud that we built the female seminary, which was the first institution of higher learning for any woman of any race west of the Mississippi. That institution educated my grandmothers. They started teaching public school with 8th grade certificates. 8th grade graduates, they started teaching school, then going to the normal school, which is what the seminary had become, and they got their bachelor's and their master's going to school in the summertime. But they needed teachers so badly that 8th grade certificates was good enough. Now, each of them spent over 50 years in the classroom. They did not, unlike Tommy's folks, they did not teach me the Cherokee language. My grandmothers could speak. They could sing beautifully in Cherokee. But they believed that their Cherokee was what they used in public education, so that the Cherokee kids that could speak nothing else, they could communicate with them and teach them English. I served on the tribal council with a revered elder, and I couldn't understand for ever so long why I was so passionate about keeping our language alive, about teaching our young people how to speak Cherokee. And he says, well, I've never been able to borrow money at the bank speaking Cherokee. I've never been able to do a job interview speaking Cherokee. And maybe it's one of those deals that if you don't have a college degree, it means the world. And if you do, it's not that big a deal. But we do have an immersion school. We have partnered with Google and Apple and all the high-tech places in the country, so that now our young people, many of you have seen the Cherokee alphabet. To write in Cherokee a very short message takes 30 minutes, because they're characters that mean something, and if you don't put the squiggle just right, or you don't put the dot on the tail, it means something different. A few years ago, they had a printing done, and it said Chicken Nation. Chicken Nation. Because the printer got it wrong. So those squirrelies mean something. But now, our young people that are learning Cherokee, they can go to their iPad or their iPhone and they can text in Cherokee just as quick as their white or English or French or Spanish counterparts. So that is on every Apple is a Cherokee Celebrate, or at least the app for it. We've got elders that are working every month to translate words for these apps so that 500 years from now, if you want to learn Cherokee, it'll be on the computer. You can speak to it and it'll give you the Cherokee word back. So I think we're doing what we should to keep our language alive. Now, never again can Cherokee code talkers help win the war. But it is part of who we are. I got off the point, I'm sorry. But so we build our schools, build our government. Everything's going pretty well till we have another little blip. It's called the Civil War. And not unlike the rest of the United States, it was brother against brother in the Cherokee Nation. We had those that fought for the Union. We had those that fought for the South. And after the war, the deal was made with President Lincoln that we would not be punished for those that fought for the South. Unfortunately, he did not live to keep that promise. So we went through another bad time. Allotment came along, so we lost much of our land again. And with the allotment, my great-grandmother, in my mind, hindsight's 20/20, she was a genius. Because my grandmother is on the Dawes Roll, and her name is stricken through. Because they told my great-grandmother that if she took her allotment and she was on the roll, that she would have to have a white, what do you call it, guardian. And my great-grandmother wouldn't have it. Because at that time she was not married. Her husband had died. But those that did take their allotment and did have a guardian, most of them lost their land to the lawyers. And guess what they did with the money? They sent them off to boarding school. Because that's what was best for them. They get an education, they could learn better English, they could get out of the poor part of the country, they could teach them a trade. All the reasons in the world why these guardians, but the guardians ended up with the land. And a whole generation was shipped off to boarding school. But I said my great-grandmother was a genius. She didn't buy in. My mother got to stay. Or my grandmother got to stay. And the capital of the Cherokee Nation is Tahlequah. My great-grandmother was born there. My grandmother was born there. My dad was born in Tahlequah. And I was born in Tahlequah. So our roots run really deep in the capital of the Cherokee Nation. I never wanted to leave. I even went to college there. But I was so fortunate. I was born at a time when the Cherokee Nation was reviving. So in 1952, the year I was born, we had a modern day, the first Cherokee national holiday. I've not missed a one. By the time W.W. Keeler, the appointed chief of the Cherokee Nation, got the president and Congress of the mind to let the Cherokees reorganize for economic purposes. I was a young man who knew he was Cherokee, had always been Cherokee, and decided that he wanted to go to law school for the purpose of helping the Cherokee. I had read that there's scholarships available at Harvard for Cherokees, that they'll be available from now on. I made the mistake of calling, telling them I was Cherokee, and I wanted to see how I could get admitted. And they said, "How much Cherokee are you?" How much Cherokee are you? That was a foreign idea to me. How much pregnant are you? And I said, "Well, I don't know. I'm Cherokee." And they said, "Well, you've got to be a quarter blood or more." And I said, "Well, I'm sure I am. How do you know? How do you know?" Because we hadn't reconstituted yet. There was no membership cards. There was no, unless you were born at the Indian Hospital, I don't guess you had a need. So I pondered it just a little bit, and I posed the question to them: if I were black, would I have to prove how black I was? And there was a long pause. And they said, "Well, no." So I got even more involved in the Cherokee Nation. And about that time, my grandmother was working with Bill Keeler to sign up Cherokees. to reconstitute. And there were those Cherokees that said, you've got to be a half or more or you cannot be Cherokee. And Bill Keeler says, well, I'm the principal chief. Although I'm appointed by the President of the United States. And he says, I'm not a blood Cherokee. So that's not going to work. So they started signing up by Dawes Roll. As long as you had an ancestor that signed the Dawes Roll, which was the final roll, or the final census of the Cherokee Nation. As long as you have an ancestor that signed that roll, and you can prove by birth and death certificate that that is your ancestor, you can be a member of the Cherokee Nation. But that time in history was also the time that Bill Keeler and Earl Boyd Pierce, a lawyer, were sitting in a restaurant out south of Tahlequah, and every opportunity that I got, I sat at the table next to them and I listened. To the planning of the resurrection of the Cherokee Nation. They had great plans, they had great dreams, they had great vision, and they had the tenacity of some of your women here that they were going to get it done. And they did. Well, I raised 5 kids there in Tahlequah, decided not to go to law school, but I was a small businessman. And every time I'd have another child, I'd have to go into another business so I could afford it. But I truly believe that God was preparing me to be chief of the Cherokee Nation. I had a construction company building residential housing, commercial businesses or buildings. I had a retail store. I'd gone to college and minored in psychology and sociology, and I probably got more out of those minors than I did out of the history or political science, because it's how you deal with people. What you say means things. Your body language means things. And I farmed and ranched a little bit. And all of these things prepared me to be the principal chief of the largest tribe in America, 320,000 strong, half in Oklahoma, half around the world. We've got more Cherokees in California than the California tribes have in California. We've got 25,000 Cherokees in Texas. When I first went on the tribal council of the Cherokee Nation, we literally fussed for 2 weeks at budget time of how we were going to spend the $1 million in unearmarked funds. That was in 1995. Wilma Mankiller was a great chief. She never had a budget over $75 million. That was the largest budget she ever had, was $75 million. Now, we do everything that the federal government does. We have schools, we have clinics, we have hospitals, we have social services, we have an EPA, we have, you name it. We do everything the federal government does except raise an army, and that's probably why we're solvent. But we've got a marshal service that has its cross-deputized with the U.S. Marshal Service, with every sheriff, every city in the 14 counties. We've got a roads program. We've got, we build U.S. certified highways. We literally do everything. There's nothing that the federal government does that we don't do. We have WIC, we have donated foods, we have, and I don't know what you call it here, but we've got it all. I've got 9,000 employees. But Wilma never had a budget over $75 million, and we fussed how to spend $1 million. The chief at the time was a friend of mine, and he would listen. And we compacted with the state of Oklahoma, pointing out that we had 180,000 Cherokees, and all we wanted to do was not pay any taxes on gas and just sell it to our people, tax-free. And that worried them. So we did a compact with the state of Oklahoma. We won't sell any gas, but they give us 7% of the gas tax they collect. That was $20 million a year for 20 years. And when we were fussing over $1 million and all of a sudden we were going to get $20 million a year, but we sat down immediately and says, we're not going to waste this money. And we believe, as our ancestors believed, that education was the most important thing to the Cherokee people. If we could do nothing else, if we could just help our kids get an education, they could take care of themselves. So we immediately carved out 25% of that, $5 million a year, to go into a sinking fund for education. There's some $50 million in that account today. Some $50 million. Because we never knew when the federal government was going to say no more. Yes, we give you money to operate a tribe. We give you money because for some of the land in Tennessee, we said that we would give you basic health care. We said that we would give you basic education. We said that we would do some of these things if you would give up the land in this part of the world. And we hold them to that, but we never know. We've had 40 treaties, folks. And most of them have been broken. So we started putting money back for that. And then we said, let's take some of this money and let's put it in the places where it'll do the most good. And at that point when we started partnering with the state of Oklahoma, partnering with the sheriff's departments, partnering with the rural fire departments, we don't have to do everything to make the lives of Cherokees better. And while we're doing it, guess what? It makes everybody better. in our part of the world now. So we took the money and we invested it wisely. We put back some for education so that if we could never do anything else, we would have a fund to help our kids get an education. But we invested in these partnerships that has made us a model across the country for Indian Nation. Because now, if I want help with the governor, I can call the superintendents of schools. We gave them over $3 million last year. I can call the rural fire departments. We gave them over $3.8 million last year. I can call the chiefs of police or the county commissioners or these folks that we partner with that can't make it without us. But while they're improving roads, or they're making life safer, or they're better educating our kids in public schools, they're helping our kids. And we're helping the others. Then, I was on the board of directors of the Cherokee Nation Bingo. And we saw an opportunity to become a gaming tribe. It was not a slam dunk. There were moral, religious reasons why we maybe would not want to be a gaming tribe. But we finally came down to we would do it, but only if the money was spent to help our people. We went through a period of 10 years of major growth. But it seemed like the money was always going into the next hotel tower or the next casino or making this remodel or doing that. Well, 2 years ago, I was elected principal chief. And I was one that made that promise that we would only game if it would help our people. Now we've contracted a hospital. We've built 9 clinics. And to give you some perspective, we had more patient visits last year than Mayo clinics. All the Mayo clinics. 1.2 million patient visits last year. Now the state of Oklahoma knows that if we closed up shop tomorrow, that it would break the state. There's no way that they could absorb in their hospitals and their clinics 1.2 million patient visits. But I want the Cherokees to have world-class health care, because if you do not have your health, you have nothing. So I've taken the next $100 million of casino profits, and we're building a new hospital, adding on to 2 clinics, and building 2 new clinics. This is not federal dollars. This is Cherokee Nation money. When I became chief, our housing program had gone by the way. We've got the best housing program in the country now. 3-bedroom, brick home, with a garage, on anybody's land, $350 a month, including insurance and taxes. Nobody can do it any place, but we're doing it in the Cherokee Nation. So even if you don't have the great job, you can afford to live and have a brick home in the Cherokee Nation. because Cherokees don't want to leave their land. They would rather work at a minimum wage job and be on their land as to move to Dallas or Tulsa or Chattanooga or someplace else. That's the Cherokee way. So we're finding ways for Cherokees to survive and thrive in the Cherokee Nation. Now, since I've been chief, we have averaged $1 million a day in 8A contracting with the federal government, bringing jobs, good paying jobs, into the Cherokee Nation so that we can put them to work close to where they live. And for years, we were stagnant in other types of business other than gaming. So today, my message is we're doing okay. We're doing pretty good. Not last year, not a single Cherokee that wanted to go to college did not receive a $2,000 a semester scholarship to go to college. It won't send you to Harvard, but it will send you to our state institution. And if you want to go to Harvard, you can still get federal loans or federal grants, federal loans, and other scholarships, and you'll still get our $2,000 a semester. The budget last year, $1.3 billion. And it's only getting better. No individual's getting rich, but all of our people are doing better. And I hope I make you almost envious that we aren't the economic engine in this part of the world. No pun intended. So, you know the history here as good as anybody. But I wanted to share with you that we're doing okay. We're doing okay. Now, I've come to pretty much the end of my thoughts right now. So I'll open it up for any questions that you have. I'll try. I've got some historical experts here. If I don't know the answers, I'm pretty quick to tell you I don't. Will Rogers put it better than anybody when he said, history ain't what it is, it's what some writer thought it ought to be. But I will give you the best answer I've got as principal chief of the largest tribe in America. Yes, sir.
Do they classify as dual citizenship in the U.S. or is it second?
Well, I'm a citizen of the United States. I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation. And since when did I get to vote? 1924. Since 1924, we even got to vote. But yes, we're citizens. We do have dual citizenship.
I'm going to comment on that. One of my coworkers, Roy Hamilton, he has a cousin that actually has tri-citizenship because he was born. His cousin was born in Germany on a military base to a lady that he had met over there in Germany. So he has tri-citizenship. So he has a German citizen, a U.S. citizen, and a Cherokee citizen. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
After the war between the states, did the Cherokees who sided with the South lose their
No, that's not really how it worked. Help me, Catherine.
What's the question actually? Did they lose the land?
Did just the Southerners lose their land?
The Southern and Cherokee.
No, I mean, it was, at that point, it was still held in common by the Cherokee
Yeah.
Nation. So it wasn't until allotment, during Oklahoma State that we lost our land.
Yes, sir.
What would you say is the biggest problem you have in the Cherokee Nation with your people?
Politics.
You know? Politics, yeah.
Congress.
They don't live there.
I mean, folks, we're working on a lot of the problems, but, drugs is a terrible, terrible thing, and we've got them. Spousal abuse is a terrible, terrible thing. And an Indian woman is 3-4 times more likely to be raped. And until recently, if you were, I'm talking about just 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 3 months ago, if you raped a Cherokee woman on Cherokee land, we couldn't prosecute you.
Black person you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, but we just got that through Congress. Just got that through Congress. Yes, sir. Ma'am, sorry.
What are some of the things that you've been working on with the Cherokee health system? You said here that you were very involved in that. What are your ideas?
Well, as I said, we're taking $100 million of our money for infrastructure. Because we've got one clinic is 75 years old. It's an old hospital. And the part that we're most worried about is we've got a doctor. He has one exam room, and that's it. Would it make more sense to give him 3 exam rooms so that one person could be in getting their blood pressure, somebody else could be getting their gown on, somebody else could be, getting back there and getting weighed, and then when the doctor comes through, they can take care of this one, and when they leave that one, this one can get dressed, and by the time they get this one, somebody else is in the next room. Henry Ford figured that out a long time ago. That the same doctor can do a whole lot more. Okay.
We've got about 3 or 4 more minutes, and then we're going to have to wind this up.
Okay.
But I think some of us would like to just sit here and ask questions all night. But 3 or 4 more minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
How big a problem is HIV and AIDS?
That is not, these other problems are a whole lot worse. We test regularly, but diabetes is so much more of a threat to us. Drug addiction is more of a threat. This meth is just terrible. But I would say we don't have an epidemic of AIDS. It's not, it's not one of the majors. Yes, ma'am.
Is your system totally exempt from the new federal health care mandate?
Okay. It truly is. Other than we are encouraging all Cherokees to enroll. because the federal government, in their basic health care that they promised us, they give us about 25% of the dollars that it costs to take care of our people. 25% is what they give us. Now, they give almost 40% to the Indians in New Mexico and that region, and they give 60 some odd percent for the Alaskan natives. But we only have 5 congressmen in Oklahoma and 2 senators. When you get out to New Mexico, they've got New Mexico, Colorado, Nevada, Arizona, and so they've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 senators and 50 congressmen. And so when they started divvying up the money, we didn't fare so well. And Alaska, when they did the formula, Alaska had the North Slope. And so everybody was pandering to Alaska. So we bill for Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance. We insure every travel employee that we've got and hope they go to our clinics and hospitals so that we can collect their insurance, so that we can help more. We've got 46,000 registered patients that have no payer source whatsoever. And if Obamacare works the way it's supposed to, a good portion of those will be insured for nothing. And we can bill for it so that we can better take care of our people than ever before. So we know what social medicine is, folks. We've had it. That's what we've had forever. Is we hire the doctors and we hope they see more patients. Yes, ma'am.
You should invite Obama to come and visit you.
Unfortunately, there's not a president in the last 20 years that's bothered to come to Oklahoma. There's not enough electoral votes. There's not enough, anything. But anyway. Anybody else?
Wait till they want water.
Yeah, wait till they want water and then they'll be. God bless each and every one of you.
Well, thank you all very much for coming out tonight. Our final lecture is November 18th. It's another Monday evening, and that's when park historian Jim Ogden and archaeologist Lawrence Alexander are going to show us and tell us how we found the federal road that we were able to open up this weekend. So we hope we'll see you in a month. And well, that's it. Good night and have a wonderful week, fall week.